Good stuff. So now that you've had a week to, I guess, kind of acclimatize and reflect on your experience, I mean, what really stood out for you in terms of the highlights from the 2.5 weeks you were there?
For us to have been there and seen all of that really was special. I mean, some of the stories within, the medalists as well were very special. I mean, Lawrence Britton's kind of fight with cancer and coming back to win silver, Luvo Manyonga's previous battles with addiction and winning silver in the long jump, all the hype surrounding Casta and the way she conducted herself throughout her run. But I mean, obviously the story of the games from a South African perspective had to be the way that Wade van Niekerk won that 400 meters in world record time. I mean, it was really special and literally stunned the Olympic Games and the world in that race. Yeah, so that definitely stands out as the highlight. Yeah.
Amongst the foreign journos, I mean, what were people saying?
I mean, people were definitely stunned. I mean, Ronnie James and LaShawn Merritt were kind of favoured to contest for the gold in that race, largely based on how they'd gone in the heats and the semi-finals, and then you had Wade running out of lane 8 as well. Certainly a medal, contestant, but the way he did that and the way he won, I mean, no one really saw that coming. So certainly the reaction was one of absolute shock, and people were stunned. The hype that surrounded that as well was epic. I mean, just the media centre and the press zones just overflowing with journos, all just trying to get a few seconds of him. It was a special time to be South African, to kind of see that, and that was our boy on that stage doing it was really special, yeah.
But in covering an event like the Olympics, when you've got such a sort of condensed schedule every day, all the time, I mean, what's it like covering that? I mean, I guess when you're covering a Cricket World Cup or Rugby World Cup, you've got a bit of sort of space between drinks, as they say. But what was that like as a journalist, sort of just going from one event to the next?
I'd hate to know how many hours we spent on kind of buses and tubes and just traveling from venue to venue. You do spend a lot of your day kind of traveling around, but they did well. I mean, they were equipped, the buses and the bus routes and the tube routes, all well equipped with Wi-Fi. And
I mean, it sounded like the Sevens rugby venue was a little bit out of town.
So yeah, that was in a place called Diodoro, which is pretty much like a little military village. I think the military base in Rio is there. So you're just hearing shots. But I mean, I can honestly say that I felt safe throughout, Probably safer than I feel when I'm walking to Food Lovers on Long Street, at lunchtime in Cape Town. Yeah, I mean, I felt really safe throughout. Maybe it is because we're South African and we kind of used to it, but certainly no worries from our side, yeah.
Well, I was going to then ask you about your lowlights, if there were any. Obviously, the press does tend to pick up on the sort of the more scandalous stuff. There was, there were some crime incidents. There was, around the organisation, there was the problem with the green swimming pool and parts of the athletes' village not being complete. And what did you observe?
Look, I don't know if they hit it well or if I just wasn't in those places at those times. But honestly, from my side, I mean, I can't really pinpoint anything that didn't work. Like I say, a few frustrating hours when you had to wait for transport to come. But I mean, if you think of how big the city is and how many people are just involved in this and how many people they have to transport all around Rio, I think they did a fantastic job. I don't know how they're going to do now with the Paralympics coming up. I've heard stories that they're a bit underprepared for that a lot of the facilities they had for the Olympics they won't have for the Paralympics. But in terms of those 3 weeks, I mean, yeah, really no complaints at all. I think they did a fantastic job.
We spoke to Cameron van der Berg last week, and he was saying that there are a lot of similarities between Brazil and South Africa. It's not quite first world, it's not quite third world. Do you think South Africa could pull off an even more successful Olympic Games? I mean, considering the job that we did with the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of similarities in terms of the poverty divide. Wealth and poverty living right next to each other. I mean, you definitely see that. I think logistically, South Africa can do it. I mean, we did 2010. I think, the Commonwealth Games in Durban as maybe a bit of a dress rehearsal. I think logistically, if you look at Durban and Cape Town, I think Durban's definitely more equipped to pull off something like that, given, that they have all of the facilities kind of in a close area. I don't think there would be too many problems in hosting all of those events in Durban and its surrounding areas. Whereas in Cape Town, I see that being a bit more challenging. But I mean, if Rio, with all the trouble they've got going on there politically and economically, if they can pull it off, then I have no doubt that we would be able to, yeah.
And which other athletes really sort of made an impression on you, non-South African athletes? Obviously, we know Michael Phelps, really sort of drew the curtain in his career in grand style. You spoke to some of the American swimming fans while that whole Chad Leclerc, Michael Phelps rivalry was going on. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, so I think the rivalry between Chad Leclerc and Michael Phelps existed more in Chad's head than anyone else's. You know, Chad was almost desperate to ignite that rivalry. I don't know if it was because he desperately wanted to be in the same conversation as his legend or what it was, but you know, it wasn't much of a rivalry at the end of the day. I mean, Phelps absolutely walloped him in the 200-meter butterfly. And that was special to be a part of. That was interesting to watch, to see kind of Chad unraveling, you know, and being obsessed with this rivalry that probably didn't really exist as much in Michael Phelps' head. So the swimming was special, and then athletics-wise, there was just, I mean, the Usain Bolt hype was unreal. I mean, sitting in a press conference after he won the 100 and the 200, I mean, those presses were just overflowing. You know, you've never seen anything like it. I certainly haven't in any press conference I've sat in on. Just hundreds and hundreds of journos all just bashing away on their laptops, you know, hands just flying in the air, kind of everyone trying to get a question. Just this crazy hype surrounding one man, you know, that I've never seen before. I mean, I think he single-handedly filled that Olympic stadium, you know. The nights when he was running, the crowds were really good, and then the nights when he wasn't running, they were, you know, significantly more empty. I mean, for one man to have that kind of power in a sport like athletics is just unreal, yeah.